worked was a combination of incentives and mandates. The $100 incentive, huge impact. The workforce mandates for our public employees, the key to NYC, dining, entertainment, fitness, all of them helped get more people vaccinated. That increased health and safety and recovery. We can see it day by day. It's working. There's a new analysis out by Patch based on city data that really puts an exclamation point on it. They looked at what has happened with vaccinations since the first mandates were announced on July 21st, so just about 2 months ago. Average vaccinations per day have gone up 45%. 45% since the mandates were put in place, and that has meant over 1.3 million more doses of the vaccine. Huge impact, life-saving impact. And it's amazing what we're seeing overall. We now have over 70% of all New Yorkers, over 70% have had at least one dose, over 82% of adults at least one dose. These are staggering numbers. So many parts of the country wish they had the numbers we had, but it's because we've been just incessantly focused on vaccination, pushing it, pushing it, pushing it. We've gotten help from public sector, private sector, community organizations, the faith community. One example from the faith community, and I want to correct something I said inaccurately before because I had been given some information, turned out to be wrong, but I want to take responsibility here. I had the wrong information about the Jehovah's Witnesses community, and in fact, we're really happy to say the Jehovah's Witness leadership has been very, very adamant supporting vaccination. In fact, here's a figure from the about 5,000 people who work in the offices of Jehovah's Witnesses houses of worship around the state. 99% are vaccinated. So thank you for the leadership. That's tremendously helpful. And we see this across the whole city, people stepping up. And the vaccine mandates, they not only work, they are winning in court time after time. There's been court challenges, state court, federal court. Key to NYC was challenged. The challenge against the education vaccination mandate. Every single time the city of New York wins because we have a simple argument. We're protecting the health and well-being of our employees, of our kids, of people who go to all these institutions as clients, as customers. And once again yesterday, a panel of federal judges, Court of Appeals judges, immediately confirmed that the New York City Department of Education vaccine mandate is absolutely legal and justifiable. That means that all the court challenges are now exhausted, and the Department of Education vaccine mandate will go into effect. So what we've done now is readjusted the timing because we had the delay in court. We're giving all of our employees up until Friday at 5 o'clock. If you're a Department of Education employee, you have until Friday at 5 p.m. to at least get that first dose. The vast majority have done it already, and we thank them. But for anyone who has not gotten a dose by Friday at 5 p.m., after all the encouragement, all the support, all the incentives, we're going to then assume you're not coming to work Monday morning as a vaccinated employee, and we will immediately find a substitute. And then those folks will go on leave without pay who chose not to get vaccinated. So by Monday morning, 100% of the staff of the adults in our public schools will be vaccinated at least one dose. And that's going to make a much healthier environment for everyone, particularly for our kids. Also, the healthcare worker vaccine mandate began yesterday. Very happy to report we're seeing great results, particularly in our public health system, which has been heroic throughout this whole struggle against COVID. And so far, pretty good also with our voluntary and private hospitals. I want you to hear an update from someone who's been leading the way throughout the COVID crisis, our own Dr. Mitch Katz of Health and Hospitals.
Thank you so much, sir. You're absolutely right that we've had tremendous success at Health and Hospitals. All our hospitals are fully operational at this time. We have, among our nurses, we're over 95% of our nurses are fully vaccinated. And I have talked as well today, both personally with several of the hospitals in the private sector as well as Greater New York, and happy to tell you that all of the hospitals in New York City are fully operational and doing well. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Really, really appreciate everything you've done, Mitch, and your team has done to keep things moving forward. And also your employees answered the call and have gotten vaccinated in huge numbers. That's fantastic. Now I want you to hear from someone who has been a leader throughout the COVID crisis, but even beyond that has been a leader for healthcare equity, for ensuring that all New Yorkers get the access to healthcare they deserve. And he's someone who understands how powerful these mandates have been in terms of getting people the vaccinations and making sure we're all healthier. Great pleasure to bring to you the chair of the State Assembly Health Committee, Assembly Member Richard Gottfried.
Well, good morning, Mr. Mayor. Good to be with you this morning. And you're absolutely right. The vaccine mandates are thoroughly constitutional, make thorough public health sense. There's no reason for any New Yorker to be hesitant about getting vaccinated. I've been vaccinated. I got my booster. My whole family's been vaccinated, except for my granddaughter, who's only 3 years old. It's just so important and makes complete 100%. It's the way to protect ourselves, to protect our neighbors, and to move our city forward.
Well, Assembly Member, I want to thank you, and I think you'll appreciate, and I would love you just for a moment to reflect on the conversations you've had with your constituents in your district. I've heard from so many people, you know, we expected a lot of criticism, a lot of folks saying they wouldn't abide by the mandates, but I got to tell you, so many people have come up to me and said thank you, and they believe in them, and they want to see them for everyone's health and safety. What are you hearing on the ground?
Well, you know, the area I represent happens to be one of the most, you know, well-vaccinated parts of the city. You know, for whatever reasons, but the reaction I get from constituents is complete support for the mandates, complete support for vaccination. I don't think I've talked to a single constituent who has any hesitation about getting vaccinated. And we've had a terrific uptake, and I think it reflects people who just pay attention to science and pay attention to the news and respond to what they see and hear.
Amen. Well, I got to tell you, one of the things I like to say, and you've been in public office a substantial number of years, my friend. One of the things I think you'll agree with, that we have 82% of New York's adults now, over 82% have gotten at least one dose of the vaccine. And I like to say, when else have you seen 82% of New Yorkers agree on anything? So here's the one time it happened.
Right.
Here's the one time it happened. Thank you so much for all you're doing to help keep us safe and your great work in Albany. Thank you.
Thank you.
So the fight against COVID, it caused us, of course, to have to innovate in so many ways. The vaccine mandates, we innovated that. The incentives, we innovated that. The test and trace core. All of the door-to-door efforts to get people vaccinated, the mobile vans and buses. Innovation was required to fight this crisis. We also had to innovate in other ways. Some things that we never would have imagined before became important to try, and then they worked in the context of COVID. Obviously, open streets, great example. Open restaurants, having the restaurants outdoor. Outdoor dining has been a huge positive for New York City. It wasn't something we did the same way before COVID. But we needed to save over 100,000 jobs. We needed to give people hope. It worked. It's now permanent. Open streets, permanent. These are things that wouldn't have been done in the past, but they really, really work. And we're going to do new things going forward. And that's part of what a recovery for all of us looks like. Something that takes us forward. So here's something else that's going to take us forward. We have a jewel in New York Harbor. We have a place that's magical, that all New Yorkers should experience. It's going to be a big part of our future, Governor's Island. But Governor's Island, for a long time, it wasn't accessible to New Yorkers. And then, since it's become accessible, it's not for the whole year. It's only certain times a year. We're going to change that. Starting this fall, we're going to be opening up Governor's Island year-round. It's an amazing place. It's a great place to go and get a break from the hustle and bustle of the city. It's part of our history. So we are going to have now, rather than a very limited schedule historically from May to October, it's going to be year-round that people can go and enjoy everything on Governor's Island. Beginning on November 1st, Governor's Island will be open 7 days a week from 7 a.m. to 6:15 p.m. And to match this new schedule, we're expanding NYC Ferry Service to reach Governor's Island daily, year-round, so New Yorkers can really, really enjoy this special place. That'll begin this year when our Coney Island route is inaugurated as part of NYC Ferry. That at the same time, we'll do this ferry to Governor's Island. And I want to emphasize, Governor's Island is a great place to visit. It's a great place to spend time, but it's also a huge part of our future because that's where our new climate center is going to be. The Center for Climate Solutions that we're creating on Governor's Island is literally going to become the global capital for fighting climate change. We have incredible interest from universities and a variety of other partners to come in and be a part of this project. We're going to be talking a lot about it later on this year. But Governor's Island, where modern New York City began, is going to be the place where we help to save New York City and all the cities of the world by coming up with the solutions to climate change we need. So very exciting stuff happening on Governor's Island, and someone who has really helped us profoundly to lay the groundwork for all these changes. She represents Governor's Island. She advocated aggressively, as she always does, for new ferry service for her district and for everyone. And she's been a big believer in the power of this new climate center. My great pleasure to introduce City Council Member Margaret Chin.
Good morning. Thank you, Mayor. And thank you for inviting me to announce this really amazing, exciting news for New York City. And first, I really wanted to thank Claire Newman, who's the president of the Trust for Governor's Island, for our partnership, our team, and also for EDC, because we've been advocating, for more ferry service to Governor's Island. And the fact that it's going to be open all year round, I think that's really amazing for all New Yorkers to experience this beautiful place. I mean, if people cannot afford to go on vacation, just go to Governor's Island and you will feel like you're on vacation. And the fact that it will be open all year round, you can really play on the snow in Governor's Island during the winter. And what's most exciting for my constituent is that there'll be a direct ferry service from the Lower East Side, from Korea folks directly to Governor's Island. And that's something that we've been advocating for, myself along with Councilmember Rivera. So I'm really happy to hear this exciting news today. And thank you so much to your leadership. And Mayor, you talk about the future of climate change. Governor's Island will help bring about that future, that we will be ready for anything. And so thank you so much for your support on this. And thank you again to the Trust and for EDC to make it happen.
Excellent. Thank you, Council Member. You're a big reason why all this was possible. Thank you for your leadership. And now I want to turn to one of your colleagues at the state level who has been, in the best sense of the word, obsessed with getting ferry service to be more consistent to Governor's Island, more use. And he's also been a big fighter for more equitable access to parkland for all. So I know this is a day that he will be celebrating. My pleasure to introduce State Senator Brian Cavanaugh.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It really is great to be here. And this really is very exciting news. I represent the lower Manhattan and also the parts of Brooklyn that are very close to the island. But it's important to recognize that the island really has become a destination for people from all over the city. I know the Trust for Governor's Island keeps statistics on the zip codes of the people who sign up for the existing ferry service and have demonstrated that really people are coming from all over New York. And that's not surprising because Governor's Island really is, as you said in your opening remarks, a jewel right in our harbor. It has spectacular, very naturalistic landscapes that people can hike and walk around. It's got a wonderful history that is still manifested in the architecture of the many historic buildings that are there. It's an opportunity to learn about the history of our harbor in the development of the city and the country. And it's also a spectacular place to look back from a quiet, peaceful spot on the city, the beautiful skyline of Manhattan, and also look out into Brooklyn. You can see 360 degrees around from the highest point on the island. And Ferry Service, we had put some money in this year's state budget to enhance Ferry Service during the summer, but it's very expensive and kind of challenging for residents and people who want to travel to have a sort of standalone point-to-point ferry service that just goes from the shore of Brooklyn to the Governor's Island and from the shore of Manhattan to Governor's Island. So adding Governor's Island as a routine point on a kind of existing ferry line, I think really will enhance the opportunity for people to get there. It'll increase people's awareness of the island as a wonderful destination and a place that they can make part of their routine. And of course, making it available year-round rather than closing at the end of October really will expand people's ability to use the island year-round. We have some wonderful institutions that are already there year-round, like the Billion Oyster Project and the Harbor School. But getting New Yorkers there year-round to enjoy the wonders of the island really is a huge step forward for the city. So I thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I also join Margaret. I thank Margaret also for her advocate, my colleague in the City Council, and Claire and everybody at the Trust who really has made this possible.
Thank you so much, Senator. It is very exciting, and I know you'll be out there year-round getting your exercise and enjoying the beauty of that place. Thank you. Everyone, again, we're innovating. We're going to do a whole lot of new things as part of our recovery. And we've talked a lot about the recovery depends on so many different pieces. Vaccination, obviously the jobs coming back. It also depends on public safety. A lot of different elements to the public safety equation. Yesterday, I went to Rikers Island to see what's being done to address the real problems there, the real challenges. Met with the leadership, saw some of the facilities that had been the focal points of the problem that needed to be addressed, the intake facilities, the healthcare facilities, the things that needed to be fixed. I saw some real progress and some things that need to be done and done quickly. And what is good to know is despite immense challenges in a facility that bluntly is very, very outdated, it was outdated decades ago. Rikers Island, remember, established 85 years ago. We are quite clear about what's wrong there and why it needs to be closed once and for all. I can tell you this from the heart. This is why I fought so hard to get to the point which we finally have reached, where we have a plan to close it soon, replace it with smaller, humane local jails in the boroughs. But in the meantime, we got such important work to do, and I want to give credit to the folks at Health and Hospitals, Correctional Health, Commissioner Schiraldi, his team, the many, many uniformed officers who are doing the job every single day and working hard to do it right, the uniformed leadership that's working hard to get things right, even while some are not doing their job, the vast majority are. What has happened, and it's good news, is the intake process, which was a serious, serious concern, has now changed profoundly. You were seeing previously some people in that intake process for over a day. Now the intake time is down to 5.5 hours. That is the average. The longest wait yesterday was 10 hours. Tremendous improvement quickly because they opened up new facilities, added personnel. The situation with the healthcare facilities improved, but we need to do more. The population reduction, that's been serious and important already in the last few weeks, working with the state. But it's also important to recognize the overall situation. Population at Rikers is down 1,500 since 2019 because we've been working to reduce mass incarceration for 8 years, and it's had an overall impact. With the actions we're going to take now, with the state especially, we're going to reduce population a lot more. We're going to get that population under 5,000 soon, while bringing back more and more correction officers. So a lot to do, but these pieces are going to come together. Also, thanks to the Sheriff's Office, that's going to help us with some specific functions, take some of the pressure off correction officers, just like NYPD is doing. And we're bringing in additional outside help so we can concentrate the officers where we need them most. We're going to fix the immediate problem, but the bigger problem remains. We need to close Rikers Island once and for all. We need to get to humane, modern jails so we can rehabilitate people. That plan must keep going and must keep going on schedule. That's the big picture we got to stay focused on. All right, as we do every day, indicators. And the first one is a great one. The doses administered to date, we are closing in on 11.5 million. It just keeps growing all the time. It's quite impressive. 11,434,222 doses from the beginning. Number two, the daily number of people admitted to New York City hospitals for suspected COVID-19. Today's report, and this is a good one, 115 patients, but confirmed positivity of only 15%. So that is a very good sign. And the very best sign in this category, the hospitalization rate is now down to 1.06 per 100,000. And then new reported cases on a 7-day average. Today's report, 1,323 cases. Nice downward slant there on that graph. Let's keep that going. Vaccination is the key. And so let's do a few words in Spanish on vaccination, and particularly the vaccination mandate that will take effect in our schools, and on Monday, the fact that every adult who works in our schools will have had at least one dose of the vaccine. El mandato de vacuna para los empleados escolares estará en efecto la semana próxima. Sus hijos solo van a recibir clase de maestros vacunados. Este es bueno para la seguridad de sus hijos, los maestros, y de toda la familia. With that, let's turn to our colleagues in the media. Please let me know the name and outlet of each journalist.
We will now begin our Q&A. As a reminder, today we're joined by Dave Chokshi, Health Commissioner, Dr. Mitch Katz, President and CEO of New York City Health and Hospitals, Claire Newman, President and CEO of the Trust for Governors Island, James Wong, the Executive Director of NYC Ferry, Marcos Sole, the MOCJ Commissioner, and Vincent Schiraldi, Commissioner of the Department of Corrections. And with that, our first question for today goes to Matt from Patch.
Oh, I didn't actually raise my hand.
Okay, well, I think they thought you wanted to say a question about your own analysis, and we appreciate your analysis. It was very important. If you have a question, great. If not, we'll move on.
Well, you caught me off guard here. Thanks for highlighting the analysis. Maybe a little bit later.
Thank you, though. Fine enough. Let's go.
All right, maybe we'll come back to Matt. Next, we have James from Pix 11.
James, you there?
Good morning to everyone on the... Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, you're the replacement leadoff hitter, James.
Wow, this is exciting. And I got to also confess, I didn't have my hand up, but I am perfectly happy to ask questions.
Go ahead.
The first regards hospitals. Can we get, I heard the vaccination figures for nurses and doctors, but do we have more information about other hospital workers and any reports of personnel shortages at New York City hospitals? I mean, even with those high rates of vaccination, that still translates into maybe a few thousand people not able to work today. Could we get more information from you and maybe from Dr. Katz?
I'll start. I'll turn to Dr. Katz. James, very fair question, but I want to emphasize, because this is what we're seeing on the ground. First of all, evolving hour by hour, because a lot of employees, when push came to shove, and it was really about to happen, like so much of human life, people respond to deadlines. At the last minute, they're getting vaccinated. And even someone who missed the immediate moment, if they come back and say, okay, I'm ready to get vaccinated, of course, we're going to welcome them back. So we have evolving information hour by hour. But again, we got to a point where it's such a high level of vaccination that we had the ability to make adjustments. Even if you're missing a few thousand employees in a system as big as health and hospitals, you can compensate for that in a lot of ways. So very pleased with where we got with both health and hospitals and schools, even before we hit the actual moment of the mandate. But with that, over to Dr. Katz.
Yes, thank you so much, sir. Well, a few additions. Remember, not everybody starts work on Monday morning. So some of the people who haven't yet gotten vaccinated haven't yet started a shift. We have alternative work weeks where people work, say, only on the weekend. So we're still expecting additional people. And as you said, Mr. Mayor, people are still streaming in and getting vaccinated. So vax mandates clearly work. Just to also help our listeners understand, I did bring 500 nurses to health and hospitals to deal with the fact that I have about 500 nurses who are not currently at work. So we anticipated that there would be some loss of staff. We knew that no matter what our efforts, some people were not going to get vaccinated, and we planned appropriately. And in talking with my colleagues in the private sector, they did as well. People knew that they would have to come up with additional staff. People are having emergency provision of services by having somebody perform a job that is similar to theirs, but perhaps a little different to fill a need. But it's all working, and certainly nothing like the horror that we went through in March 2020. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mitch. Go ahead, James.
And again, I appreciate being called on today. It's really great, actually.
We're obviously having a little crossed wires today. We're going to fix that, but I'm glad you were the beneficiary. Go ahead.
All right, again, all good. And then for my colleague, Kala Rama, the UFT says 1/3 of their leadership is worried about school safety and there not being enough safety agents. Now, Kala learned that at New York City schools last week, there are about 1,500 not vaccinated, 1,500 safety agents. What is the plan for school safety, particularly as we look ahead to next Monday?
Yeah, James, a similar point to what Mitch said. So think about the whole week. People come in at different points in the week, different shifts. So, for example, if you've got someone who's not going to be vaccinated and we need to replace their time, you can do that in one way with overtime if someone's willing to do extra time, and most people are. Second, we're going to see, again, a surge of vaccination. We've seen it every time these deadlines are coming up. The numbers with school safety agents are higher than was reported publicly. So the vast majority have been vaccinated, and that number continues to grow. And then we'll have some backup plans ready if there's any place that needs it. But really, I think between getting more people vaccinated up to the last moment, using some overtime, shifting some agents around to make sure schools have enough, we feel good that we'll be able to cover it.
Next, we have Derek from ABC.
Hi, good morning. I actually had a similar question, but I guess I'll continue on with that vein. And basically, continuing on with that vein, Commissioner Shea was on New York One this morning, and he basically said that, we can't replace what we don't have. I mean, so isn't it true that you will be short-staffed in some way or another on Monday with as far as schools go?
I don't know the quote you're referring to. I can tell you again.
Well, he was just talking.
Go ahead.
He was talking about the school safety agents saying that 74% are vaccinated, and the question was, will they be reassigned to other shifts? And he says, no, if they're not vaccinated, they, won't be getting paid. And so, and said that they won't be able to replace he said, we won't be able to replace what we don't have.
Yeah.
So if we don't have the people to replace, then they're going to go without.
Again, respect the quote. I haven't seen the whole context, but let's go where you started. 74%, let's call that 3/4 of all safety agents already vaccinated. There's days more for people to get vaccinated. We guarantee you a substantial number more will get vaccinated in that time. There is overtime, which can help us to fill some of those shifts. There's places where if you had a certain number of school safety agents and you have one less, it doesn't stop you from still getting the work done. There's a variety of things that we're going to do And I think what you're going to find, Derek, is most people, the vast majority of people, even those who say, I didn't want to get vaccinated, make a different decision when it becomes very, very practical. So now someone is literally looking at the possibility they won't have a paycheck for a prolonged period of time. They may even lose their job ultimately. A lot of people are going to look at that and say, hold up, okay, I'll get vaccinated. Because the number of people who are philosophically, rabidly anti-vax are actually quite small. We're just seeing that. How 82% of New York City adults already have one dose because the vast, vast majority of folks believe in vaccines, and even a lot of folks who are hesitant ultimately get there. So that number is going to go up, and we're going to make the adjustment, but then I think you're going to see people start to come back when they actually experience not having a paycheck. A lot of people are going to make a different decision. Go ahead, Derek.
And my next question just has to do with the lawsuit and the appeals court ruling yesterday. First, are you concerned about a possible petition to the Supreme Court? And also, how do you feel about the fact that the court didn't even bother to have a hearing on Wednesday, instead just ruling on the written arguments?
I think that is a tremendous show of confidence in what the Department of Education is doing. Here's a federal court of appeals. I mean, this is one of the most prestigious courts anywhere in the country. If they thought there was anything to debate here, they would have had a proceeding to hear both sides. They literally said there is nothing to discuss here. It's obvious that the district court ruling was correct, and the state court ruling before that. It shows how strong our case is. The plaintiffs can attempt to go to the full Supreme Court, but I strongly suggest to you, after that process involves, as I understand it, going to a single justice, and that justice looks at the previous record and decides whether to recommend it to the court, and then the court has to decide to put it on their docket. There's a lot of steps. But when a federal district court and an appeals court have both very quickly said, no, the New York City Department of Education mandate is legal and appropriate, I think there's a very, very strong likelihood that we are done here with the court process, and that's why we're definitely moving forward.
Next, we have Andrew from NBC.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor. I've got a political question for you. I'm wondering your reaction to Jumaane Williams exploring a run for governor. He's telling folks that he's actually forming an exploratory committee this week. What's your response to that, and does this impact your potential gubernatorial plan?
So thank you for the question, Andrew. I respect Jumaane Williams a lot. We have a good long history together, but we also obviously have areas we disagree. So, it doesn't surprise me. He's shown interest in that before. To the second part of your question, I've made very clear I intend to stay in public service. I want to serve the people of this city and this state. I want to continue working on issues that I care about deeply. There's a lot that needs to be fixed in this city and this state. So, I'm going to figure out the best way I can serve going forward. But right now, as you see, every single hour, every day, I'm focused on defeating COVID once and for all. We brought our schools back, which was crucial. That's going really well. We're going to get these vaccine mandates to have the impact we need them to have and turn the corner on COVID and jumpstart our recovery. That's what I'm focused on. Go ahead, Andrew.
And my second question is on the vaccine mandate related to schools. I apologize if another questioner asked this because the feed cut out briefly, but some of the teachers are saying, for example, paraprofessionals or food service workers who might have slightly lower vaccination rates, if they're not there next week, then the teachers need to cover for those jobs, and that's especially arduous for them because they're already overburdened. I'm just wondering, specifically with regard to special needs for the and food service workers with nutrition, such a critical component of public education, how you're planning to tackle that.
Great question. Thank you, Andrew. So the whole team and I, the DOE team and First Deputy Mayor Dean Fullahan and I went literally job title by job title back on Friday. And we analyzed where the numbers were and what adjustments we'd have to make. I want to emphasize, the 91% right now is the formal number on teachers. who have been vaccinated at least one dose, and we had almost 1,000 more vaccinations in the last 24 hours for DOE in general. But 91% for teachers, 87% for all DOE staff. So there's not a lot of gap there. It's closing constantly. A lot of people who are getting vaccinated now are folks in those other job titles. But to your specific question about the paraprofessionals, we looked at that. We got to move that number up, that's true. But there's also a lot of substitute paraprofessionals who are vaccinated, who are available, who are ready and willing. So hopefully, and I believe, for paraprofessionals, they do such important work. And I think a lot of those are folks who really want to keep those jobs. I believe the vast majority who are not yet vaccinated will come in and get vaccinated. But if we need to get substitutes over, we have thousands ready to go. Go ahead. Next person.
Next, we have Juliet from 1010 Wins.
Oh, hey, Mr. Mayor. So just to continue on this vein, I was wondering if you're going to set a limit that if the Department of Education or a hospital employee doesn't get vaccinated by a particular period of time or by a certain date, they lose their job.
I'll start and I'll turn to Dr. Katz. Juliet, look, our goal is to get people vaccinated by the point that they come in for work. So for all of our DOE employees, we want everyone to come in Monday morning vaccinated. We're giving them till 5 o'clock on Friday. If they're not, we'll make those substitutions because we need some time to do that. For the folks in the healthcare system, as Mitch said, some are coming in, some came in yesterday, some are coming in today, tomorrow, you'll align it to that. But look, there is definitely a chance to correct for people who think better of the situation, miss their paycheck, miss their opportunity to serve people, miss their colleagues, whatever it is, they can correct. If someone didn't, over a very prolonged period of time, respond, yes, they do run the risk of losing their job. But that's not what we hope to see in the first instance, obviously. Mitch, would you like to speak to that?
I completely agree with you, sir. I'm not in any rush to terminate people. I understand that people find this a difficult decision to make in some cases. The fact is people are not getting paid. And I'm not quite sure, New York City is not a cheap place to live. The value of a job where you do not get paid doesn't seem to me very high. So, as the question implies, at some point, people will need to move on because they're going to need to get a job that pays. But right now, I'm not interested in terminating people. I'm interested in welcoming them back for vaccination. Thank you.
Great quote from Mitch Katz. I want everyone to write it down. The value of a job for which you don't get paid doesn't seem very high. That's one for the ages. Go ahead, Juliet.
Okay. On a very different and completely lighter note, the Yankees and Red Sox are vying for the wild card, and of course may the best team win, but as a Bronx-born New Yorker, I know what team that is. Your thoughts, Mr. Mayor?
Wow, provocative. Let's just say this last weekend was eye-opening on the abilities of the New York Yankees. So I'm going to tip my cap. Giancarlo Stanton figured out how to hit the baseball again. Look, this is going to be right down to the wire. And it's actually a 5-team race, Juliet. Do not go to sleep on the Blue Jays or the Mariners or even the Oakland Athletics. But it's going to be a very exciting week. As a baseball fan, I'm pumped up. And yes, may the better team win. That seems like a nice way to put it together.
Next, we have Chris from the Daily News.
Chris, you there? Chris.
Next, we have Marla from CBS 880.
Good morning, Mayor.
Hey, Marla, how you doing?
All right. Your non-answer to Juliet's question was intriguing. Let me move on.
I'm trying, Marla, I'm trying to be diplomatic. I hope you appreciate it.
when it comes to the Yankees and Red Sox, there's no way to be diplomatic. But anyway, something with the schools, something that was brought up yesterday by the teachers union leadership was their frustration that there's no guarantee that schools will be fully staffed once the vaccine mandate goes into effect. Michael Mulgrew cited an example where a substitute may get 5 calls from 5 different schools and then chooses the school where they want to go in the end. So I have a question about that. I mean, how can you guarantee that there will be substitutes? And obviously, substitutes are not a substitute for a teacher in the classroom. So, is there a certain point at which you would say, okay, you're terminated, if only to create, bring continuity to the students in that classroom, to have, a new teacher in that classroom that is vaccinated?
So, great question, Marla. The arbitrator in the case involving the UFT did delineate the scenarios where either a teacher could leave the school system if that's their choice, or where there is a process for termination. So, look, I would say, yeah, you're going to have some of that sorting out. We don't wish it for anyone, but if someone really is not willing to live by this approach, then it's time for us to find new people, and there's a huge amount of demand. A lot of those substitutes are people who are absolutely ready, willing, and able to become permanent teachers, who are very experienced, who are high quality. They're ready. So the point here is we are going to give folks a chance in the short term, but in the long term, anyone who's not ready to be vaccinated, on an ongoing basis, of course they're ultimately going to get replaced. And there's thousands and thousands of great educators who want those jobs. They're incredibly good jobs. New York City teacher job is totally coveted all over the country. So we're going to be good on the long term. And you're also talking at this point, a few thousand people that we need to replace. So we know we've got plenty of substitutes. And yeah, if a substitute ends up choosing one school over another, we put another substitute in the school that needs the person. So I really think we went through much, much worse, Marla, last time around, trying to figure out under much more adverse circumstances how to cover classrooms, and we did. Well, we feel very confident here. Go ahead, Marla.
And completely off the COVID topic, but have you given any more thought to the gifted and talented program for kindergartners and what might replace it?
A whole lot of thought. Thank you for the question, and we've been working on it a lot the last few weeks with the Chancellor and the DOE team. We'll be making an announcement next few days on a plan that's going to be very, very different than what you've seen in the past and much more inclusive. But I'll stop there, so I won't break news too early, but we're going to have a very, very different plan ready in the next few days.
Next, we have Katie from the city.
Hey, good morning, Mayor de Blasio. How are you?
Good, Katie. How you been?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, how you been, Katie?
I'm good. I'm good. I wanted to ask you a question that my colleague Claudia wrote about the new operator for the former Trump golf course up in the Bronx. The person who was awarded that contract is a homeless shelter operator who doesn't have any experience in operating golf courses. So I'm curious, it's twofold. Do you think that this person can be successful in managing this golf course for the next 13 years? And I know the Trump organization has threatened to continue to fight this in court. So do you have a comment?
What's your first question?
Hold on, we got some back.
I'm a hard time about.
Close off your lines there, guys. Got a little background noise. Okay, Katie, to your question. I think there's been some confusion. I'm happy to clear up the confusion. First of all, to the point about the court case, we feel very, very strongly we're in strong legal position. The Trump organization is not. We believe we're going to win that one straightforward. But in terms of operating the golf course, the organization that I think was described in that article is only working on some of the staffing, is not the organization that's operating the whole golf course. That's actually an organization, a company called Bobby Jones Links, which is a major golf course operator nationally, over 20 years experience. They are exactly the kind of organization that we were looking for, that has a good track record of running golf courses and can make this one work. and they intend to improve the golf course, ensure that it's affordable. So we feel very good about that. Go ahead, Katie.
Thanks. And I wanted to ask about a report you released yesterday involving severe weather. You estimate that there's about 100,000 people living in vulnerable basement apartments that could be susceptible to flooding, and the plan is to create an evacuation plan for them. I'm curious, I don't know if you have data on evacuation rates from people living in Zone 1 during hurricanes. From my understanding, it's very low. So what is the city planning to do, A, to build up its capacity for evacuation centers? It seems like it would have to increase tenfold, and ensuring that people do evacuate from their homes, because I know it's a problem. It doesn't seem even in the report that the city has a plan for what could be a very quick evacuation for people living in these places.
Now, it's a great question, but I want to start by saying it's a very different kind of evacuation. I think what we learned here was a primary problem, of course, with a rain event as opposed to a coastal storm is the flooding of the basement, maybe some flooding of the first floor. But what we did not see, here was the worst rainfall in the history of New York City. And with very few exceptions, we did not see houses knocked out, and made uninhabitable for the long term. For example, Sandy, which was a horrible coastal storm, hurricane and nor'easter together, you remember well, the thousands and thousands of homes destroyed. So this is a very different reality. In that case, you're evacuating people who cannot go back to a home anytime soon, and then we have to figure out where to house them. This is, from what we saw in the worst example ever with Ida, this is a very temporary evacuation. This is to get people out of their basements just for the period of the rain and until the basements can be cleared. So we have shelters. We would put them up as we have in the past. We obviously can have hotel rooms for folks who can't go back right away. The key thing here is to identify each and every one of the basement apartments, get people out quickly if we see this kind of danger coming, have work in advance from the community organizations going door to door to talk to people, acclimate them to it in a variety of languages, have the PD and FD drilling and ready to do the evacuation. So the key will be warning people in advance, getting them in the mindset, getting them ready, and then we see an evacuation, giving the order at the first available moment, sending in PD and FD to support it and make it work, getting people to those shelters. But again, hopefully for a very limited period of time, unlike what we saw in the past with some of the major coastal storms.
Next, we have Emily from New York One.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor.
Hey, Emily, how you doing?
I'm well, thank you. I hope you are too. What will the sheriff's office be doing at Rikers Island or at the courts to help out matters there?
So one of the areas where we think they can help is with transportation. There's some very specific roles moving inmates, for example, to lawyer meetings or court appearances, whatever it may be, that we think they can take on discreetly. And again, relieve some of the pressure on the correction officers so they can focus on Rikers itself. So we're working out that plan, but the goal now is to take separate pieces. The transportation is one piece. The arraignments in court are another piece. That will be, in some places, the NYPD. The perimeter security is another piece. And cover them with different forces so the correction officers can be used where they're needed most. Go ahead, Emily.
And are you considering firing or terminating correction officers who, following the suspension period, continue to call off of work but not be sick or ill?
Yeah, obviously. Look, I don't understand it. I saw so many officers yesterday who had fought their way through really tough situations. I saw a very determined uniformed leadership, and I commend them. And they said to me, the vast majority of officers have done the right thing and worked very, very hard, and in fact had to work those double or triple shifts because their colleagues didn't show up, which is reprehensible. So first point to anyone who's faking being sick is suspension. And at that point, they have to come back to work. If they are not, if they choose to resign, that's their choice. But otherwise, yeah, there'll be a termination proceeding if people don't do what they have to do. And again, we have a new class of officers coming in. We have a lot of people. We had thousands of applications for the new class. Anyone who's not able to do the job and support their fellow workers should just move on, and we'll get people ready to actually do the job.
We have time for one more today. Our last question for today goes to Julia from the New York Post.
Hey, good morning, Mr. Mayor. How are you?
Good morning, Julia. How you doing?
Good. I know you said yesterday at Rikers that or maybe you said this on New York One afterward, that it wasn't your mission to speak with either rank and file correction officers or inmates. Why wasn't that your mission, given that, they make up the mass of people who are on the island every day and who the violence and everything impacts their lives?
Yeah. Julia, I appreciate the question. The bottom line is this. For a lot of you, I think some of the challenges at Rikers may be new, and I respect that. For me, they're not new. I've been dealing with these issues. I remind people, when I came into office, there had been months of exposés. And I know the New York Times in particular focused on this in the months before I took office, on the problems that existed at Rikers and had existed for years. I spent a lot of time understanding those problems. I've, over the years, have talked to inmates, have talked to folks who were in Rikers as inmates, have talked to officers. I have a pretty strong understanding of the extent of the problems, and some of what we're seeing now, some of the specific problems, like the problem we had in intake that needed to be solved, that was a newer problem. But overall, if you or anyone else go in there and you see the facilities, you see the problems, those aren't new problems. Those are horrible problems that have existed for years. So I don't need to be reminded of something I already know. What I know is we have to get off Rikers Island once and for all. So we'll do every step, we'll make every investment to make it better in the short term, but we shouldn't be there. We need to get off it once and for all. Go ahead, Julia.
And then I'm also wondering why you pushed back your own mandate for vaccinations for DOE employees a week after winning in court. Was the Education Department not ready to implement this?
Totally ready. We wanted to align it to the weekend. We got some good feedback that we would be better served getting the point of decision at the end of the week so that we had the time between Friday 5 p.m. and Monday morning to get all the substitutes in place, any other personnel that we needed to. And that makes a lot of sense. That's just a cleaner way to do it managerially. Originally, we went with a Monday because it was the beginning of the week, but now we understand that there was a better way to do it, aligning the deadline to a Friday so that for the Monday we could have all the substitutes in place. So we just took the moment to do that. But the bottom line now, everyone, is, look, these vaccination mandates work, these deadlines work, they get people to move. We talked about this last Friday into Saturday, we saw 7,000 more vaccinations in Department of Education. People who are on the fence benefit from these mandates bluntly as a way to make the decision. The proof's in the pudding. Right now, Department of Education, right now, health and hospitals, we have the numbers we need to run things well, but we're actually going to get thousands of more vaccinations in the days ahead, and it will make it even stronger. So thank you to everyone who got vaccinated. Thank you for doing the right thing for your family, for your neighborhood, for New York City. And to everyone who's not yet vaccinated, please, this is the time. Help us move forward. Help us end the COVID era once and for all. Thank you, everyone.